Okay, let me just show you what all we have ready so far and what all we need for today. I want to show you how to make those strips or your own custom tapes so that you can make your designs or your book more unique. So this is the current state. We have these covers. This is the front with the ribbon. I have this in paper, which because it was a mistake, I did it like this. Then we have just two folded A4 sheets. We still have to connect them. One of them has food. One of them has the old building. And this is the back. So at some point, the back will be attached, either pasted completely or it can be attached this way also. I prefer to just paste completely like a hardbound book. So I'm going to take at least one more sheet and show you, fold it and show you how that can become the end part of the book. And these two we will attach to each other with some kind of adhesive tape. Now this tape can be of varied sorts. You can get a regular washi tape like this. You can use a paper tape like this, or you can use an invisible tape like this. An invisible tape is just like a translucent tape. Once you put it on paper, you don't see the tape. So if you have illustration and you want it to be taped, it's better to have something like this, which will not impede your artwork. So I'll show you these also. But there's one thing I like to do is using this paper tape, I like to design my own tape as well. So let's start off first with just pasting of some stuff in our book here. So I have this one A4 sheet, which I will fold in half. I prefer to illustrate on the slightly rough surface. So I'll keep that as the inside part. And our book will open like this. So I need to paste the paper such that obviously it is centered from all sides. Now, whenever you do pasting in books, you will often notice that they do not move the you probably won't take this, put glue here and then put it like this. Oftentimes you'll see that you place stuff, you sometimes even tape it into place and then lift up an edge and place glue in one point, place it down, lift up the other side, put glue and place it down so that you don't mess up the corners. If you are looking at your work from an angle, you might see something else over here. And then when you turn it around, you might have a little bit of a Sunday is longer than Monday happening. So look at your work from the top. Our sizes are very close to each other. There's possibly just a 1 mm space on either side where the cover is beyond the edge of the paper. So 1 mm is hardly any amount and it can easily go over. So you can keep a weight and then use glue or Fevicol and paste in dots. So without moving everything else, just open this flap and put a little glue Don't put it too much on the edge. I prefer to not have it on the edge too much. And
This
then
is the
you,
back side.
this is the back, yeah. I want to show you how to finish the back. And either using an old brush or like a flat brush or something, just spread the glue evenly. So you don't get too many bubbles and ugly warps. And now carefully place it back over there. Hopefully you're dexterous enough that when you keep your hand here, it doesn't shift the paper. But to again avoid that, you can keep a weight, but you can use both hands if need be. And again, turn the book around, do the same thing, and paste over here. And this is usually enough. You don't need more than that. Because a book like that is not going to be handled like a book with text. I'm sure all of you must have used regular reading books in a very different manner. We carry them everywhere, we fold them, we keep opening and closing them. This is not how this book is going to be used. So once it's attached, this is how it will open up. Now, the reason why we keep the end paper separate and don't paste this itself to the end paper is because when the end paper is compromised at this point, you need to have a little, just a little flexibility for just the grace of the book. Otherwise, it looks like your last picture is a little unelegant, inelegant. I never know what that word is actually. Um, but this way, it gets a little more stability. Your final picture does not have to look like your last picture. Now, all the other pages, this is the only page where we are attaching glue like we did for the front. Even the front, we can glue it or we can paste the corner. So now both these options are valid for the back and the front. Since our inside paper is so light, I chose to paste the paper, but you can also try putting a tape on. So when we're taping this, we need to keep the papers flat. Now, in this case, my paper is slightly smaller. See over here, it's about again 1 centimeter smaller. So I would actually prefer to paste this. But these two, for example, they're the same size. They can be attached like this. So again, to attach this, the simplest way is to put two weights on these sheets so that they don't move. And you cut a piece of tape that is exactly this height and paste the two papers together. Now, if you think about it, regular tapes are quite boring. So it would be nice to have something like this, slightly decorative tape. But these tapes are so expensive, and then colors may match, not match, you never know. So in this particular case, I want to use another sheet, a sheet that we could have of maybe even a drawing sheet. And that itself can be a connector between the two sheets over here. So this is a regular drawing paper. This is left over from maybe when I was doing some craft or whatever. Maybe cut out a square over here and then this leftover paper. So you can take a strip that's about 1 inch long and we can make a nice decoration here. And this decoration can be a little more thoughtful. Like, for example, we could make the colors of the flag of Finland, or we could make maybe some uh, just tiny designs or whatever, and then cut it in a different way, not just a straight line, so that it looks like an interesting edge. So that's what I want to show you. Now, to make these two match, we will color the food and the strip at the same time because this strip is going to be visible on my paper and I want this to match. If that weren't the case, I could have taken any of these tapes. But my food has, I don't know if my food and this tape is going to match in color and tone. We have to take care about that. And on the other side, I'm going to use invisible tape because my illustration comes out further. Okay, so keep your paper handy. And let's start with painting all these food items. Now, as usual, let us first put in some shadows. We have this, okay, I'm going to try a new share screen today. They have this amazing option of reducing the size of, changing the sizes of what you see. Let me know if that works for you. Do you see my book larger than the reference image? But you do see the reference image as well? Okay, good. So the soup we're making is this one over here right now. I'll just go over all the food items that we have. This is, now I can't remember. That is here. Oh, no, sorry. What is this? That is this. Then this is the salmon soup. Then we have the shrimp, whatever things. We have the sandwich cake. And we have the milk, whatever dessert. Okay, so now in all these cases, the first thing to do is put in shadows like these things. We don't put them last, we put them first. And shadow colors are just this generic gray you can make using black, burnt umber, and a little bit of ultramarine blue. You can switch out any of these. You can use yellow ochre and black also if you want. That'll become slightly greenish. You can use cobalt blue if you want. So at any point, be flexible with what kind of gray you're making. When it comes to foods, often the grays we use are warmer grays. That's if the shadow falls on the food. But if it is the tableware, then the shadow can be warm or cool. So a slightly brownish black would be a warm, cool color. A bluish black or bluish gray would be a cool gray color. That's all. And if you make one instead of the other, it's not wrong. It's fine. So the purpose of this is to put in a little swish of color. I want you to test it out now that we have this extra sheet here. Test out and see how dark this is. See, this is barely dark. There's a very light shadow. So it's very watery. And you put it like this. You will press your brush down along the edge and bring your paint close to the closed corner in the foreground, and let your paint dry here. Just stain the paper. Using the same one, same color, you can also paint on the salmon soup on any one side. Don't paint on both sides or all sides. Here, because they are two sides converging, we painted on both sides. Here, we are seeing the plate from the top, so only one side will get colored. Okay, now when I see your video, I see a lot of you doing a lot of moving from left to right. Do all of you have your water and colors and brushes and rag on your right hand side, except Elaine? Elaine will have to have it on her left hand side. See, if you keep your water on your left and your color on your right and then your rag on your left, basically you're doing this whole thing. You don't want to do that. All your tools, if you're right-handed, all your tools go to your right and you do a quick, everything happens here. You do color, water, rag, paint, color, water, rag, paint, and so on and so forth. All your tools will be on your right-hand side. And the distance between your water and color and your work should be as short as possible. Clear out all the area around you. Don't have too much clutter. Don't have too many liquids around that can topple over your work, so you can keep it clean. I think that this is something I should have told everybody right in the beginning. I'm so sorry, it's my mistake. This should have been lesson number one. Okay, never mind. Now I think everyone will move much faster. All right. Now the other place we put this is in this jam and jelly situation here at the bottom. So just towards the left. Now when I'm painting this, I am really pressing the brush down and embedding this gray color into the item. But you can see that it is fluid. It passes across the line. It doesn't necessarily, it's not like a single block that I paint. I'm painting the general area. That will give it a nice soft edge as opposed to a hard edge, which you might see at the edge of maybe a plate or definitely between two different materials. Shadows are often free flowing. They will flow from the edge of an item onto the surface on which that very item is placed. So this color traveling across lines is perfectly natural. I want you to just go around all the other items and see the places where you see slight shadows and start adding color, regardless of what that material is. So you can add a shadow at the base of the shrimp here. And maybe you can choose a smaller brush if you want, or just with the tip of a large brush, that's fine. And if you do it right, often you can use only these shadows to create a lovely black and white effect and don't even need to use color. Look at this. Keep it casual. Keep the lines casual. There is hardly anything that you will do with this color. If you've done it very lightly, that can go wrong. So keep your color light. Very little pigment. And then also put a little color on the base, just at the bottom like that, so that it looks like there's a shadow there. Now, sometimes you'll also come across shadows where we've not drawn lines like these. And this now we are actually illustrating that white cream cheese itself, because we're not going to put any other color in this. And you can put some shadows underneath the chives. So effectively, we have sort of painted the cream cheese itself by just painting the shadows. Moving on to the dessert here. Now here, this situation is slightly tricky because we have a yellow colored object. So we need to consider the options. Do we need to make the black shadow? What if if it'll overshadow the yellow? What if the yellow runs? So for the moment, let's try giving the shadow first anyway. And keep it light and then come back into this with maybe a deeper color, a different color perhaps. But it is a valid consideration. Will this gray interfere with the vibrance of yellow? And for now, I'm not going to declare one way or another. Let's see how it works.
Aditi,
Yeah.
that thing that you're painting, we looked up was some kind of stuffed cabbage.
Oh, it could be. I have no idea whether
It's
it's
stuffed
cabbage.
cabbage. Yeah, I looked at because I didn't have the reference images, so I looked on Pinterest and
Okay.
found this whole list, and it turned out to be stuffed cabbage.
It's very possible. I found this picture. So I have the Scandinavian names. I mean, the what country are we doing? Finland. Finnish names for these. And I could not find a translation of this item. Let me tell you what the others are.
Yeah, and this came as the top 20 foods of Finland in
Okay.
Pinterest, and
Uh-huh.
they had this whole list with the same pictures and a description of each of the dishes.
Ah, okay. Good. Okay, good enough. So cabbage, whatever. Point is, whenever we're making an illustration, it doesn't matter whether it's a cabbage or it's a crepe. You have to paint whatever you see. Okay, and then we have this last one. Oh, but where is it? Yeah, this fellow. This one will have, um, you can, now I'm turning this around so that, I just wanted to see how I'm making the shape here. A little bit of brush manipulation is required here. Remember these dimple-like shapes that we had made? You can make like a teardrop shaped dark shadow on any one side. Don't do it on both sides. So it's just like a little press. I have a feeling that these sides are pressed up and pushed in. But if we make both sides dark, like both, this is a U shape. If you make both sides dark, it might not look effective. So any one side is fine. And where it flattens out, there it's not a U shape and it comes very close to the edge. So keep looking at the reference image before you make these shapes. Now, if the shadow side is on the in the U shape, if the shadow is on the right side of the bottom ring, on the top as well, it will be on the corresponding side because the light source is going to be the same. So it's not a pattern that continues from all sides. Remember that. Now, again, this is only for you to know the science behind shadows. If you happen to make it in the opposite direction, just as a pattern also, it's okay. So sometimes observation helps, sometimes just knowing science also helps. And then obviously the shadows on the other one will also be similar, but there'll be one extra shadow that you can put along the edge on the other side or beyond the edge of the overlapping pastry. Now, this can theoretically continue for everything else, like on the edges of your vegetables. And you should learn to just make these like random marks. Some sushi, maybe not too dark on the sushi, not sushi, salmon, but they're there. And of course, our sandwich cake. In this case, a lot of the colors are very subtle, the cucumber, the salami, tomatoes, lettuces. So, and also you might be overwhelmed by too many shadows. So just make a little bit of a shadow underneath some of the lines, looking at what line could be on the top and what might be below. Now, while these shadows are drying, we can create a series of edible items that we can draw on our strip of paper and paint this together. Now we've got some kind of berry here or jam of berry, some berry, and they usually make very nice uh, illustrations. So, this pen. We can take a whole bunch of berry references. Let me look for some and share with you while you're painting these. So I have a picture of some blueberries. I've just shared those. And there's something called a cloudberry, which looks very interesting. Oh, that color is very yuck though. Better one. So combination of these berries can be made in a strip all along here. So let's start off with, see, this is going to be the height, and we can make it about twice as wide. Let me stop this for now. So we can make it about twice as wide. So that's about an inch wide, and start off making the larger berries. So you can make like a triangular shape, the strawberry. And make all the strawberries first, so then they are well distributed. You can also draw strawberries in bunches, like a pair of strawberry if you want. And of course, leaves. So strawberries leaves are very rounded. We also have flowers of strawberry. Large, round, 5-petal flowers. Simple seeds like these. Just draw lines. Remember, this is an embellishment on the paper. So we don't really need to do too much of detail for this. Then let's throw in some blueberries. Blueberries can just be round, just circles. And in some places, you can make the 5 or 6 pointed crown at its edge or end. Then we have some smaller berries which are just on a stalk like these. So they are smaller than blueberries. So you make a 2 or 3 pronged stalk. And not all the berries need to be on that stalk. Some of them can just be around to fill up space. And also look at overlaps. Now, there isn't any room for cloudberries, but that's still fine. We can make them here. So cloudberry looks like you just draw one circle and then another. It's like an overlapping set of circles. And then you have its sepals on the side. And the leaves are pretty much like a strawberry's leaves. Then here you make one center oval or circle, and then everything else goes around. So this becomes our tape. Now we are going to eventually cut it along this edge, but don't cut it before painting. So while we're painting this spoon, we are going to also paint the tape. Okay. Let's start off with some of the lighter colors. So search out all the yellows and oranges, like we have the potatoes here, the carrots here, a little bit of potato here, some yellow over here, and yellow in maybe this, the cheese in the middle, and paint all of that with just washes of either lemon yellow and gamboge, or yellow ochre and gamboge, or orange and gamboge, or just orange itself. So typically, don't paint one thing at a time. Ideally, you need to be very brisk about this. So hydrate all the colors. If you're comfortable, you can just pick up colors from the cake itself or create a puddle of different colors here. And keep moving between the cakes as well as the palette. So take a little bit of lemon, a little bit of gamboge, and keep them separate. Don't make one puddle of any one color, because you will keep using different shades of, even if it's yellow, different shades of yellow. So you need to have some flexibility. Now, when I'm painting the potato in this soup, I will I will dab a little bit of lemon yellow, gamboge, as well as yellow ochre. Just check the color over here and dab it on my supposed potatoes. Now a little bit can go in my carrot, it's fine, because I can go over the carrot with an orange, it won't really matter. So this dabbing is important. Now I want you to completely avoid painting like that. This is what takes time. And we don't need to spend so much time on coloring. We've spent already a lot of time in the illustration bit. Now I'm moving over here just so that I don't put my hand anywhere close there. And here again, I will leave a few sections unpainted because I want highlights. And using the lines that I have drawn, I'm going to paint around those areas just like this, fatafat. So wherever you happen to have left a little white space, continue to maintain that. Don't be too hung up on accuracy at this point. Make quick brush strokes and you're in and out within a few strokes. I think these are my potatoes, yes. And here, now the cheese is not this yellow, it's almost like a lemon yellow. And here too, though you can see cheese throughout, it has highlights. So don't paint the whole cheese. Paint it along the edges, of course, because there will be shadows there. And keep it light. Now a little bit of gamboge and yellow ochre on the muffin thing over here. This is gamboge and yellow ochre, but even a plain gamboge would be fine. And paint this part carefully. Go very gently underneath the cream cheese layer and very carefully in the section between that paper. So these are the places you should take time. If you've made your medium nice and liquid, you should be able to do this very easily without the medium drying on you. So a liquid medium often will leave like a blob every time you lift your brush. So we often feel that once, if we leave that blob, it's going to dry as a puddle. Let it dry. Even that puddle is not bad. And here now, leave a few highlights in some places and paint these as well. Now this can be a little tricky, so while painting itself, just go round and round. Like, don't paint it in a straight line at all. Paint it as if that paint is, with that paint you are creating little blobs of that whatever berry jam we have. It obviously has a few pieces of that berry in it. That's making it look very bulky a certain way. Okay, everyone with me? All right, okay. Now for the where are we at now? Yeah, now let's move on to the reds. So we have a little bit of salmon here, and that's a pinkish color. Let's finish that off. The salmon and the salami over here. You can make that shade using crimson, a little bit of gamboge, and a little bit of yellow ochre. And try the shade out. So this is crimson, gamboge, and yellow ochre. So because salmon is very light, even the coloring should be very light. It's just a dab. And automatically in a few places, like I told you, there will be extra color. Those will be the shaded places. This is how watercolor artists get away with light and dark without doing anything. It's just,
Maybe can you go over the colors for the salmon, please?
yes, yes. This is crimson, gamboge, and very little bit of yellow ochre. Now I can't give you quantities, so you will have to mix them separately and see how they work. So I'm going to suggest keep your gamboge on one side, crimson on one side, and yellow ochre on one side, and keep mixing the shade till you get a light enough shade, and test it out on the rough paper.
Okay.
The same color can be used for the sandwich also. If you want, you can make it a little brighter by increasing the amount of crimson in that, just so that the two meats don't look the same. But honestly, in this, it won't really matter. So it really literally just stain the paper. There is a certain amount of natural, I don't know, pigment in meats, which will come again quite naturally if you fiddle less and try to paint less. So automatically I will get some kind of marbling effect here, which is very common in different kinds of meat types. Now the leftovers of this color, what is in your brush, can then be applied on the shrimp. And again, not all over, just in a few places, just along the edge maybe, just a few dots here or there. Keep the strokes light and casual. So wherever you put the color, after the first round, you can also make a second round with another dabbing. To just add in some shadows, but we'll come back to this in a bit. Now, since we are moving to pinks, this is the moment where we can use a little more, I guess, gamboge in this and start painting the berries. It's the same color as our salmon and meat with a little bit of extra gamboge. So you know what I'm doing here? Look at how this is again a very, very simple technique. I'm using my 10 number brush for this. The color is not too thin, but not too thick either. And all I do is go around the segment of the berry and leave a little highlight. Wherever I pick up the brush, automatically there's a shadow. So I plan to pick up the brush. In this case, you can pick up the brush literally anywhere and that shadow becomes valid. So really, without even trying to, this is the best and only way of painting berries and making them look three-dimensional. The reason why they do land up looking three-dimensional is because we have used two different shades and also in two different ways. So I take my salmon shade, pick up a little bit of gamboge, and then start painting. I don't create one color of that berry and then start painting. And then I will take that salmon color again and add shadows afterwards. So this is the reason why we paint the main picture and its embellishment at the same time. So we maintain the color harmony throughout. Imagine trying to make all these colors after you have finished painting this. It will be a nightmare. Okay, is everyone with me? Do you need me to slow down? Right. Okay. Now I'm moving to carrots and oranges. This is just a straightforward orange, but again, mix it with any other color, maybe a little bit of crimson or even scarlet is fine. A little bit of maybe yellow ochre is fine. Now, if you find yourself wondering, what have I drawn here? Is this a carrot or is this something else? Which happens very often because you've drawn everything in black and white and it was a week ago. So in that case, start off with the known or most obvious shape. So you look at one and say, this can't be anything other than a carrot. Let me first paint that. And then in the others, you can just say, okay, this, I can convince my eyes that this looks like a carrot. Then paint those. That's how you can go about it.
Aditi, there's some sausage in there.
Oh yeah, you're right. There is some sausage as well.
It's
All right.
looking like sausage anyway.
It is, yeah.
What you've painted, yeah.
Yeah, so we can, some of this can be sausage. This looks like a carrot. This looks like a sausage. So in case of the sausage, you can, after this dries, we can give it a layer of crimson. I was wondering why all the carrots are not looking orange in summer. So I'm telling you today, I'm not even thinking about what those ingredients are. I'm just looking and painting. So at some point I would have changed the color to whatever. Sometimes when you paint these fruits, sorry, not fruits, vegetables, you also feel that there are like bluish hues on the shadowy parts of things like potatoes or garlic, the white colored foods. Now, this soup itself is a very light yellowish greenish color. So for this soup, what have I used? A little bit of, okay, here's the color I've made. This was gamboge, And I took a little bit of this green. Look at how little. And there's some red here. So I'm dulling it down. And pressing this around.
Could you repeat that again, please? For the
Yeah.
green?
It's a gamboge and sap green. Gamboge, sap green with a little bit of whichever reddish color is lying around in your palette. Don't take anything from the cake. It can be burnt sienna, burnt umber, reddish brownish color to sap green, which is already mixed in, gamboge. Right, this sausage should be now easy to handle. So the sausage also, I could make a small, no, that's looking awful. This is going to become too red. Let's see. Now I've taken a little bit of crimson and I'm just adding that to some of my supposedly carrot pieces. I think carrots are cut in half. But I want you to see how I'm deliberately not painting them like this very, very carefully. Don't paint them too carefully. Just put some like swish of color. And at this point, you can also add some shapes of color around these because these will be submerged underneath. So there'll be some sausage, some carrot, some potato. So extra color alone around these shapes. And it looks like a plentiful soup rather than just a light liquidy soup with a whole lot of water and very little mal masala.
Okay, thanks a lot. And then we can get together tomorrow, maybe, of the questions about
Now here's another way to make salmon as well. Orange and crimson. So instead of gamboge, yellow ochre, and crimson, I have just mixed orange and crimson and I get a similar color. So like I keep saying, there isn't one way to mix a color. I'm using this new color to shade in the meats in the sandwich cake.
based on our whatever we have, see the above. If you feel that there's some information that
This is still a second layer and we can make a darker layer which will be
one of the questions
burnt umber added to this maybe, or even a bluish color. So the deeper you make the shadows, the more realism you add. So realism does not really mean realistic. There's a difference between the two. Realistic is stroke by stroke, color by color. You will feed it and make the picture look like a hyper-realistic picture. But realism is the feeling of 3 dimension, of reminiscent of actual, but not necessarily in its real form. Now, before we paint the tomatoes over here, I would like to paint in the greens. So there's two, three different greens that I'll make. One is just a light green. This is just sap green. I'll add a little bit of yellow ochre to this in one corner. And I'm going to put that in the center of my cucumbers. Just a swish because it's a very light color. So that's yellow ochre and sap green. And then with the medium brush, I'm going to first just put in a whole lot of a wash in or a wash off sap green. But along with that yellow, little bit of what's it called? Yellow ochre as well. Now, all these colors are also existing in the sandwich itself. So we can keep adding them to the sandwich as we go along. Especially the greens because they're very stark. Notice that the lettuce on top over here is not on this, in this gap between the cucumber and the lettuce. That is the sandwich part, which looks like this. So don't overfill it. We want that layer of cream on top also to be visible. Then here I already have a dark shade that's made from sap green, probably burnt, no, not burnt, sap green and cobalt blue, yes. This is for the cucumber. This is for the rind or skin on the rind. And the shadows in the lettuce. Now in lettuce, in the cucumber also, there's usually a highlight. So it'll help if you can leave some parts unpainted. Or I often do this also. I'll take a little bit of cobalt and I will just paint a darker shade at the bases. Oh, there's some cucumber here as well. And this is tomato. Yeah. There's a little salmon in the sandwich or some of the other meats. So you can put a little crimson there. So sap green is a very vibrant green. If you want to tone it down, you can always add a little bit of yellow ochre. And you maintain its brightness, but not its excessive vibrancy. I'm using that color now to put a second layer of green so that it actually shines. And in the second layer, obviously, paint something else, paint something less. We'll use the same color to paint the chives. And when you're painting chives, you can, if you have the patience for it, leave some highlights in some places. And if you don't have enough chives drawn, you can still make them. You can still paint them. Just remember to vary the placement. While that is drying, I'll paint the greens in our tape. So that's the strawberry leaves. Remember, whenever you have to cut up something, first paint it and then cut it. Don't cut before painting because you just can't hold the paper otherwise. Again, while this is drying, let's move on to the red berries. And I already have some crimson in my palette, so I'm going to use a combination of orange and scarlet and crimson for the strawberry. So keep it simple. Just make a highlight somewhere, anywhere randomly. Start off with a light color, which is your orange and scarlet. And as you move further, add crimson and blend it. And your strawberry should be ready. This color is fairly concentrated, but it has flow. So though it may have a lot of pigment and less water, it's still thick enough, or sorry, it's thin enough to flow easily. Not so thick that I have to replenish the paint very quickly. Ideally, never make the highlight right in the center. This looks so ugly. No, I'd rather not have that. The other smaller berries are much redder, so they look like scarlet and crimson only. Remember, this is an embellishment, so keep it fun. Your color can go outside of the line, that's fine. And the last one, I'll finish this off. This is blueberry. This is usually cobalt blue. And its stalk is also blue. I've not ever seen it green. All right, okay, this is the blueberries. Right, so this is how this will look. And also please put a little bit of yellow inside the strawberry flowers. And if you want to add more depth to the strawberry itself, you can take a second crimson color and just make a little swish of color for that.
I guess we missed out on the color of the blueberry.
That's just a cobalt blue.
Okay.
Hmm. Now, if you want to intensify any of this, just as an option, I'll show you. You can use the same shadow color that we made earlier and put a shadow on all of this. I thoroughly enjoy making shadows, but sometimes that can be either intimidating or it can be scarily complicated. And once you've done it, sometimes you don't like it. So I want you to just see this as an option. Because we have got so many colorful fruit and berries, I'm making this in gray. But it can also be made in a cerulean blue. And somehow that shadow makes the object pop from the paper very differently. And all I do is swish a line on any one or two sides. So just on the right of everything, right, and the bottom as in this orientation, right and bottom, right, bottom, right and bottom, and in between these as well. So while this dries, let's move on to the other berries. So we've got this cabbage thing here. Oh, this plate, we didn't put any shadow. Yeah, put some shadow now over here. It's the same color. And a little bit on this side, just to acknowledge that there is a plate. To create the darker patches in this cabbage, I'm just using burnt umber. So I'm putting some dark burnt umber patches underneath some of the berries and on one edge of or one side of all the lines that I've drawn. See? it automatically starts making it look like a three-dimensional object. So often if you've made the drawing correctly, coloring afterwards is just supporting that same story, you can say. Before I forget, I just want to inform everyone that I'm moving the travel illustration weekly class from Friday to Saturday afternoon. So that's going to be always a travel illustration class. So some of you, if you want to join or if you want to continue, then you can join that as an extra class. And you can have in this class next month, we'll be doing food again. So those of you who've missed out, the last time we did food was in October. And since then, I've been trying to print a student's book on recipes, and it's not happened. And already the next food illustration has come along. So let's see, hopefully this time there'll be more people at the end of the month who would want to share their recipes. So yeah, that's the announcement. And also this Sunday, that's the 5th of May, I'm announcing a day-long workshop in travel art. So this won't be for you guys because you've done everything. But if you have any friends who want to do it, or anyone who has been interested but has not been able to join the class for some reason or another, then it'll be a good one for them. So do share my number with them and encourage them to join up. So that's on the 5th of May, Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, so now we're at 10 to 1. I want to know from everyone, do you think you would be able to complete the rest of the food? Because this is essentially now just come down to food, but I want to show you how to bind the book with the tape that we've made and the other tape. So let's just finish this coloring. So this bread obviously has all the browns. So we'll use yellow ochre, a little bit of burnt sienna, and a little bit of burnt umber. I've turned my sheet around so that I can again paint. Remember that on the opposite side of the shadow will be a highlight. Wait, I can't be, even I've got confused. So we can paint the edges for sure. And then a little bit on the shadow side, of course. Yeah, that's about it. So this color we can paint on both sides of that pinch. The colors used again are yellow ochre and burnt sienna. And because we put the shadows earlier, even if your color goes over like mine has gone, it will still maintain that 3D effect. Now we can use the same color for the soup. That's, I think, something I should show you. Because this is a little weird to paint. How do you paint a transparent, translucent soup? This can also have some burnt umber. Now I'm just directly adding the burnt umber to this soup. And only in the, like if you look at where the depth of the soup comes in, it's only around the middle and below. Like on this edge, you will see the light part of the soup. You might also leave a few highlights. So that's still yellow ochre and burnt sienna. And then as you come literally lower in height, you can start adding a little bit of burnt umber. And this time though, it helps to be a little careful. Don't let it go beyond the edges. Now the extra color that we have put is representative of the submerged ingredients. So I will paint around those submerged ingredients, give them a firm edge. So I'll make an edge such that the carrot looks like a carrot. It's no longer a blob. The sausage looks like a sausage, like in this case here. And maybe some overlapping stuff over here and there. Make a few dark lines and maybe a few dark shapes. And then with just a residual paint, go over some of these with that color and let it run so that it looks submerged. The edges are softened. And you can, if you really want to, do the next more advanced step is to drop in deeper colors like a black or even a blue into this. But do this only if you feel confident, you know where to put that color. Otherwise, burnt umber should be fine. Now, those of you who are painting very tentatively, you might have left some white spots, some unfinished painted spots. Don't leave too many of those. Take a small brush and fill in some color or the other. Just even as a dab, like a yellow maybe, gamboge, a little bit of that sausage color. Something, because those white spots means that your eye will be attracted to that and it will say, okay, what is happening over here? Why have you not put color there? And then depending upon the rest, after the food has been painted, you can also choose to paint these bowls some color or another. I'm definitely going to paint this, but I'll do it later today and I'll share it with you. It's almost 1 o'clock. I have painted just a little bit on this edge so that I can show you how the pasting will come using a transparent or translucent tape on this side. So if you just finish painting the edge, let's get to it. I think I will later on undo the tape and paint some more because I think I can make some more depth in this, but not for now. Shall we do the pasting? You don't have to do it with me. You can just observe. I just like to do it in time so that those of you who want to leave early don't need to wait too long. So here's up front. I'll paste this to the front later. I'll paste it later. This is how our book will open up and look. Quite nice. I'm quite happy with it. So I use my cutting board so that I can align my paper correctly. But this all, I mean, you can do it even without this board, as long as you keep both these edges firm. So even with the cutting board, I will still need something that I can weigh down. So I can keep my art kit here. And I can keep my pencils here. And keep this on a flat table. If you keep it on the edge, automatically this paper will start running to one side. Now use, because I have this dispenser, I get this frayed edge and I don't like that too much. So I cut it off at an angle deliberately because I don't want a flat edge. And I'll also take a tape that is slightly shorter than longer because I don't want to roll over. Now you have to make sure that these two are properly aligned. So keep your fingers and whatnot to make sure that they're aligned. You can also use the help of maybe a washi tape or something to ensure that the papers are in place. And then you can paste it. Now again, when pasting, remember, like I've got a little piece of dust here. I don't know how, just the last minute. Oh. If these things happen, just abandon this part and paint, stick something else. Anger. See this? Oh, I don't know if you can see it. It's quite an ugly thing here. But avoid removing this tape because it might tear out the paper. So the invisible tape is barely obviously visible and it can fold your book in an accordion form like this so that when you display it, this is how it will look. Now, of course, if you want to, you can also display the other way around so that the joints can go to the back and the book is displayed like this. It's up to you and how you want to illustrate it. Now for the other side, we do pretty much the same. In this case, you cut along. If you have an X-Acto knife and you're comfortable with that, you can cut with that. But I like to keep my edges other than straight. Just gives a much nicer finish, I feel, to the page, like a lacy flourish. And you do get washi tapes like that. But again, where do you get them from? And just for one page, do you really want to buy a whole tape? This whole idea of mass production just does not sit well with me, unfortunately. So I'll end up doing all these things because they are easy enough to make, because since we are now illustrating, we might as well go the extra mile and do everything ourselves. Now, if you think about it, there are so many designs that you can make like that. You can make food, you can make flowers, and you can literally make these tapes in your spare time. And of course, if you're anything like me, you will enjoy the original so much that you'll end up not using it, and you will make photocopies of that and use the photocopies instead, which is still fine because it is still your work, it is unique, and you have the right to copy it or reproduce it any number of times you want. And now we can just paste this over here. And look at what a lovely embellishment this will make. So in this case now, things are a little tricky because we don't have a fold over here. So it's a good idea to first paste the tape, turn it around. So you'll have it like this. Score it with something like the back of a knife or just the scale and not scale, the scissor, and then fold it and then paste the next paper. So this is another way of pasting as well. So let's see, let's put a little bit of glue here and see how this looks. Oh, that scoring has really helped. I can see one edge. And I even just used my nail. I didn't even score it with any tool. Oh, I have no idea. This is yeah, so one side is pasted. I think it looks quite pretty. And then on this side, you can score just along the edge. You don't even need a scale because the edge of the page itself will guide you. And then you can fold the paper like this and paste the other sheet, the one in the back. On this side. So I don't make a mistake again. Which side do I have to paste it? Front. This. because it has to open up like this. Again, we can keep the papers next to each other, straight line, align them. Keep them straight, keep some weights, and then paste. There. So this can fold both ways, front and back. This can fold both ways, front and back. Once our cover comes, this is how it will look. So you don't have to have an ugly thing like this, or even something like this, which has a straight edge and a very obvious joint, when you can make something as pretty as this. Okay.
Aditi, I think you dream in your dreams also, you're very creative. Oh my God, how can somebody be so creative? Very beautiful. This tape has come out so beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it really has. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Like a little bit of print almost.
Yeah, it just kind of adds that, X factor to the whole thing.
Doesn't it? I mean, really, I agree, but not just because the quality, it's just the idea of doing it itself. Now, this is not my idea of having tape like this. I have seen tapes which have got undulating edges, and that I always like those, but I've never found the array of subjects that I would like. Like for food, I don't want to necessarily just put foliage or animals or something. So then I realized that I could do it myself.
Oh, gorgeous.
But I'm going to tell you one thing. This is something that I did invent in our classes. Even with paper tape, we use a lot of this tape or the other tape when we are writing names. And there's one time when we were doing this, this itself can also be an interesting artifact. I'll show you how. Paper tape can be drawn upon. So you can, even if it's not cutting and all, even something like this, you can easily make all sorts of designs on this. So you don't keep it just flat like that. Doodle on it, for example. And instantly it becomes an artifact. Then it also receives color very well. So you can do this, then you can color. And if you have a board like this, which is, or anything that's even just a plastic, you can paste it and you can do all sorts of painting on it. Yeah. Sorry, the color is too liquid. No, this is not working. No, I'll use a sketch pen then. Oh, today nothing is going to work. So even this can be used for taping. You don't need to always keep it blank. And if nothing else, just scribble with these also. I often do these kinds of designs on paper tape. And in fact, there are fatter tapes also. So you can do all sorts of designs on the fatter tapes and make them look pretty.
Actually, yes, I have an almost this like the mask, like the packing tape. I have
Yeah.
somebody gave me a large one. I didn't know what to do with it. Now I know. That's the size.
Yeah. I think I'll do this in my Instagram today. I've been thinking of doing this, making your own decorative tapes. Because I have all the material out now. Might as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I do this often when I'm making labels for jams or something. I don't make the jam yet, but I'll make the label. So same thing, all sorts of designs. And then this, you can do all these designs like that in monochrome, which you would otherwise not do. And also lettering. But again, in this case, you should not just leave it like that if possible. After this dries, take the trouble to cut away these edges. That is what makes all the difference. Otherwise, we are no better than just another sticker. See, something like this on a jar will look more like a decorative sticker than something that is just left like so. So I know it takes a tedious and all, kids cut, like my mom would say, but it is totally worth it. Okay, so now you will now be able to paste the front and then bind it all together. And of course, this is probably just a fifth or a tenth of what we can do. The next thing is actually to cover up the front and the back with all sorts of tiny stickers that you can related to this. So if you want to take the next month or so to find out more stuff, if you have one more page, you can illustrate something more about Finland. You can draw the map of Finland if you want. And then make some artifacts that you can place on top and make the cover really hard. Because right now we've just used some recycled paper, so it's pretty flimsy. So you can cover this up, and then this itself will become a nice, like a keepsake for you. And you can aim to make many such books. So each month you can make a different book. And the more you make, the more you'll practice making these books also. Then when you're traveling, if you want to plan for travel, make the front and the back covers, make them in hard card instead of the thinner papers that we have. Those can be cardboard or just actually card paper that you can buy. We normally don't use that at home, so we don't have a stock of it. But you can buy those, cut them to size, and you can watch the video again from 2 weeks ago. It's the same process of covering and making those ready. And if you plan correctly, if you have like a week-long trip, you will make maybe 2 illustrations on the trip. That's about it. So if you think of how many such trips you're going to make, one booklet might be good enough. One booklet of 10 folds might be good enough for like a 6-month period of trips. And you can pack stuff in properly. But also, I forgot to tell you that the first joint that we made of this tape, you can also tear it up and add more stuff in here if you want to. So not the fancy tape that we made afterwards, that's too much trouble. But the other one, the invisible tape, you can just tear it and tape on top. Don't try to remove that tape. Just tear it up and then separate the two, add more stuff in the middle if you want to, and then tape it all over again. Okay, great. So do remember this Sunday, please spread the word. I have only 3 participants right now, so I would be happy if I have 300 people. share it with a lot of people. You know, I'll be sharing the ad by later tonight. So please encourage more and more people. It's just a 1-day thing. It's a great introduction. But also the best bit is in the price of the workshop in the next 2 weeks, they can attend any one of our classes also. So that that's just included in the cost of the workshop. So that should be fun. Okay, so that's on the 5th of May. And all of May, we are going to be doing food illustration. So again, if there's anyone who wants to learn how to do food illustration, please spread the word and invite them also. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.